Living Corporate is brought to you by the Liberated Love Notes podcast, part of the Living Corporate Network. The Liberated Love Notes podcast is a starting point for integrating self and community affirmations into your daily practices. The Liberated Love Notes podcast center the experience of Black folks existing in white systems and speaks to overcoming imposter syndrome, disrupting injected and internalized forms of oppression, embodying an abundance mindset, and building a healthy racial identity. Check out Liberated Love Notes podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, hosted by Brittany Janae Harris.
We're talking about it is levels to this 2020 while Black. All right. Now, everybody experienced 2020 and it was hard for everybody, but Black folks, I think we can all collectively agree, experienced 2020 in a very different way, in a very unique way, because we got levels on top of levels on top of levels on top of levels. And we're going to pause to really talk about what those levels are and unpack them and the ways in which it impacted us as a collective. So today, I'm going to kick it over to you. Give us a snapshot into what it was like for Black folks in 2020.
Thank you so much. We've all been dealing with this pandemic all together, and as Dr. LaWanda said, 2020 was a year that was hard for everybody. I don't want to take that away from anybody, but it definitely hit Black people differently, right? Yeah. So right now, I'm just going to run you through some stats just so you can kind of get an idea of what 2020 was like and actually what things are still kind of like, because, this isn't over yet, right? So as of today, I just got this from the New York Times right before this. More than 470,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus, okay? And there have been more than 27 million reported cases, okay, all across the country. And it has had a disproportionate impact on people, right? So in comparison to white folk, Black people, 4 times more likely to be hospitalized, 3 times more likely to die. Hispanic and Native folk, compared to white folks, 4 times more likely to be hospitalized, 3 times more likely to die, okay? And that's just, we're talking strictly on health. We're talking about getting hospitalized, dying. We're not talking about the rest of the issues that COVID will impact your body with for the rest of your life, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, right? There are people who still don't have their smell back, right? Their sense of taste back, after months, right? So this is just hospitalizations and deaths, okay? And it's impacted so many different facets of our life, okay? So think about education, right? Schools went virtual overnight, right? So, a lot of us are educators in institutions. Someday in March, we went to work, right? And then they just said, don't come back, right? They said, don't come back, and we haven't been back, and we haven't been back. And this has been especially hit for K through 12, okay? So students lost months of learning, okay? I think it was like about 3 months of learning for students in K to 12, about 5 for Black and Latino students, right? Lost a month's learning. Now, there's a broader question about what that actually means and what we should care about for our children, right? But by these standards, still Black and brown and low-income children are hit worse, okay? Healthcare. Hospitals are overburdened. Doctors are stressed. Nurses are stressed. There's not enough protective equipment to make sure that everybody's safe, right? In LA County, just, in December, there was 0% of ICU beds available.
Yeah.
Right? Think about that. Anything happens to you, right? You're walking down the street and you fall. Well, I guess that's just it.
That's a wrap.
Big deal. And the big one, and that's what we're talking about here in the break room, employment. Okay. So between February 2020 and December 2020, 5.4 million women lost jobs. Okay. 4.4 million men lost jobs, right? And the unemployment rate right now for women, Latinas, highest at 9% unemployment. Black women right next at 8%. Okay. And Black men always, have the highest rates of unemployment. So this has really just impacted, once again, everybody in a certain way, but Black people the most, okay? Yeah. So right now, we want to take this time to talk about that, okay? So how has coronavirus and this pandemic impacted work expectations, right? For you, and for you as a Black person.
That's good. I think we would love to hear from y'all to really talk about that, because I felt and still do feel very strongly about work expectations in light of being Black as we're living through COVID-19. Because as you said, Dr. Jade, you just listed stats that that sound like theory, y'all. I want you to take that from a theoretical perspective and make that practical. Because as a clinician, I can't tell you how many of my clients, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, sisters, brothers, were those people disproportionately laid off, unemployed, impacted by COVID, in ICU, or God forbid they lost them to death, right? Who had children, whose children were now automatically moved to virtual school. All of that shit is real, okay? Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, these people were working professionals, still having to go to work and perform, many of which, don't get me started, are in anti-Black, hostile-ass work environments, okay? Who have no idea the levels to the impact of the of COVID on Black folks specifically. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm gonna throw this one in just for a fun fact. Then we forget that we were also moving through this time where the world was coming to their racial reckoning. And everybody wanted to know how they could be an ally and how they could be supportive. And oh my God, I see you. So it was stressful to say the least. Mm-hmm. It was anxiety provoking to say the least. It was, impacting our motivation to say the least. And we still had to go to work. Mm-hmm. And for me, y'all, I don't know about y'all, I want to hear y'all thought. For me, I was like, I have a Black card.
Pull that Black card.
I'm pulling my Black card. Anytime some shit happen or go down, they kill. Breonna Taylor's murderers got off, not going to work. Mm-hmm. Oh, they killed somebody else in LA, not going to work. Y'all paralyzed this man, not going to work. And the expectation that I had for myself, I don't know if my employers had it, but the expectation I had for myself is like, I can't work under these conditions. I can't meet my same level of functioning prior to all of this.
Mm-hmm. How are we supposed to?
Yeah, I agree. Especially because, a stress reaction, a trauma reaction is a trauma reaction, right? So, it puts your body into fight or flight, and you're not going to be able to focus and concentrate on things. And and that includes work, and that includes being a functioning human being. And for me, I kind of bridge both worlds because I teach part-time over at a medical school. And the work was still coming. I still had to jump on Zoom calls and be entertaining and shuck and jive and do what I needed to do to make sure that the lecture went through, because Lord knows we don't want any bad evaluations, which is a whole other podcast all by itself. But from the world of the entrepreneur. So as a Black entrepreneur, I had to try to stay 5 steps ahead of whatever was happening, not knowing what was going to be happening. Because if I didn't think of a policy, if I didn't have enough hand sanitizer, and my employees went to work and somebody got sick, that's my ass on the line, right? So not only am I having to see patients and do what I do there, but I'm also having to try my best to support employees, keep them informed of everything going on. It was a shit show. It was a lot. I'm proud of my company that we were able to get through that and kind of grow from the experience. But I am tired. The compassion fatigue right now is real. It is real.
So real. What about you, Dr. Jade? Do you feel like the expectations of your productivity was considered? Do you think it wasn't considered, or did you just have it for yourself?
I definitely, in general, my personal feelings, nobody should be going to work right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as I'm concerned, we're living in the world of The Walking Dead, and there's zombies, and the zombie is coronavirus, and there's zombies around, and we need to be hunkering down and focusing on our family and our friends. That's just me. All right. That obviously didn't happen, right?
Not in this capitalism.
Not right, not in this country, right? But for me, I'm lucky, and I always acknowledge I'm a man, and I have certain privileges that that grants me. I take my space. If I can't do it, sorry, I can't do it. Not going to this meeting.
Even if I can, listen, I acknowledge my privilege as well. As a female professional, doctor level, educated, working as an entrepreneur, and also at an Ivy Plus, who goes above and beyond to accommodate people who are used to being accommodated.
Right.
And I have a privilege to be like, no, I'm not going to be able to do that. Or I am overwhelmed, or I can feel the anxiety in my body, or I can feel the impact. Like, who can show up for work when you just watch one of your brothers and sisters, being murdered, literally. You know what I'm saying?
Over and over, right?
Again,
And that's the part, over and over and over and over and over. It's probably happening right now.
Oh, it is happening right now. Yeah, we just don't see it.
Which is called, by the way, vicarious trauma, right? And you talked about this earlier, Dr. Bryant, of like the trauma response. Like, yes, we are humans who are moving through the world, and when we perceive threats, which Black folks in 2020 perceived a whole lot of them, that fight or flight or freeze, was activated often over and over again because we experience vicarious trauma, because we experience some trauma reactions. And yes, Rashida, it did go down January 6th. We had another, react. It didn't stop. It didn't stop when we started 2021. And so what I can say that I can truly appreciate about, at least my supervisor and my boss is that she's always been conscious of that. Like in my team, really like take the time that you need, take a step back. And that has given me time to attend to my mental health and wellness. But I just want to illuminate the fact that I don't think that's the reality for everybody. And that has had an impact.
There are people, once again, I'm lucky, right? I'm a professor. My job was easily moved virtually, right?
Yeah.
Like you just said, just teach online. There are people who have never missed a day of work. And since this whole thing started, well, it was just another day for them, right? And I just think about that a lot, and how it must affect them, and
and I know I speak also from a position of privilege. The thing that bothers me and kind of chaps my ass, though, is that we have the ability to have every kid be virtual. We do have that ability. We have the money to do that. And we chose not to. And because the economic and racism, economic inequalities, our kids are getting left behind even faster than other kids are. And and I saw this not only in real time as I'm working with parents, and they're like, I have to go to work and I can't sit and, help so-and-so with their reading because I just don't have time. And we should be ashamed as a country that we don't have basically universal internet access. And I think that one silver lining that comes out of this horrible COVID tragedy is that work from home is going to be the standard. I think that we should also cut down on how many damn days of work that we do work.
Period.
A 5-day work week is dumb, y'all.
Period.
It's like real dumb.
It's hella dumb. It's hella dumb. And I completely agree with you, because I was thinking about that. Like, okay, so we know that it's feasible.
Correct.
In academia, in telemedicine, we know that it's feasible. And we know that it's having some level of positive impact on people's mental health, being able to engage with their family, be more present. So what y'all gonna do on the other side of this?
It blows my mind. I mean, it's the most interesting, strange, like experiment, like a real time experiment that's going on. Unfortunately, again, we came into the pandemic with less money and less wealth, and so we're playing catch up and paying our black tax even more. But I am hopeful, y'all. I am so hopeful. For the Black folks, like I've connected with y'all on Twitter, being able to connect like this all over the country. The Renaissance is coming, and I can't wait. It's gonna be badass.
The Renaissance is here.
Oh,
and I think that's a good pivot to engage. Those followers who are listening. It's like that black tax. What has the black tax been like for you all specifically in your work environment? In your home environment, having to move through 2020 while Black. I know that there are so many different levels. What has been that black tax, and what are the levels to it? I know for certain I can pop us off, and I would love for the co-host to follow, and then we can all talk about it. The black tax for me has been as an extrovert whose mental health is maintained by social relationships, by being able to, whose motivation and inspiration and vision comes from being inspired by the most brilliant minds. I love to be around people who tighter than me, because then I can feel inspired. And that having to come to a halt or being interrupted because of COVID and because of the administration failing to properly attend to it, that has had significant impact on just my well-being. Because people are partnered, they have family, they don't have family, they move. We all move through this 2020 in very different ways. And for me, not having that social engagement with the level of black tax that I probably felt the most. Despite my privileges, that black tax you couldn't take away that black tax. If it was California was locked down, we was locked down. We wasn't going nowhere. So I felt that black tax for sure.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here because the one black tax that I felt. So we knew that PPP loans were coming up. So these are basically free money that everybody and their mama knew how to work except for black folks, myself included. To the point where when I go to apply for a loan and I am talking to my banker and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know why they're asking for such and such form. Hopefully you have QuickBooks." Because in order to know what this form is, you need to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, right? And so I jumped, y'all. When I say I jumped through some damn hoops, I jumped through some hoops for that first one. And I thought to myself, I have no idea how any other company, especially if you're a solo agent, if you're doing stuff by yourself, I have no idea how they're ever going to get any money. And then, of course, the research shows that black folks didn't get hardly anything out of the first round of loans. And so my black tax is number one, knowing that my fellow people who look like me are getting screwed over by a system that is supposed to be helping them again. And it failed us again. And so now I have to, and for me, my goal is to try to educate and support as many people as I can to go get free money while they can.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I always think about how this year has affected us, just for how it's affected my kids mostly. Like I said, I have 2 kids and I feel like they have suffered the most. They have suffered the most, right? All the time, you have kids and, you're taking care of them and you do everything for them. You do their laundry, you clean for them, you cook for them, you X, Y, Z, and you're just like, they have it so easy, right? But I was driving with my wife the other day and I was like, man, they have it so easy. And she was like, when you were a kid, did you have a pandemic and you weren't allowed to see your friends for a year? And I was like, let me I was like, yep, well, I guess,
oh my gosh,
there that goes, right? So, I definitely feel like they've suffered the most, They
have. My brother illuminates that often, and he talks about like, I don't have children, so I don't get a chance to bear witness to it, up front and close. And then the students that I do work with, I can see the remnants of it because some of them are like first-year students or first-year graduate students, and they're super excited, but that's been put on hold. So I think it's important to kind of really pause and understand the impact that is being experienced by the children right now.
Absolutely. And one of our listeners put what their black tax was, which I think was really well written. Rashada said, my black tax was knowing that my feelings of anger, frustration, and exhaustion were valid, but still feeling the need to police my expression of those feelings. That's the black experience.
That is the black experience. And there's a question too that I want to get to, but I think that policing, like that's so, like, even that has layers to it, like feeling like we cannot express ourselves in our anger because we're in these spaces that are anti-black or not understanding of it. They have pathologized our anger, or they have become fearful of our anger, or wanted to make it become more comfortable for them, not even experiencing the things that are infuriating us. And I think that is definitely, Rashida, a black tax that I definitely understand. So let's take this question. I'm going to pose it to Dr. Jade, Dr. Brian, see if we can weigh in. This is Dr. LaWanda mentioned, and this is from Rashida as well. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Dr. LaWanda mentioned having a great relationship with her boss, which helped. I do as well, but understand that this is not the norm. What tips do you have for fostering that type of relationship? And also, any tips for how to cope with managers who aren't supportive? And I think that's a very, very good question.
That is a really good question.
That is a really good question. Kind of a hard question.
I know.
Yeah.
My first thought, is that, I hate playing games. You know what I'm saying? Like I like to just be direct, X, Y, Z, but I live in the real world, and I live here. You have a boss, play, just a little bit, play the nice game, play the sweet game, bring some chocolate, if they like chocolate, bring some chocolate, right? Buy them a beer, happy hour. That stuff is silly, but it makes a difference. It's just true. It makes a difference, right? You want your boss to like you. You want your boss to like you. So my first thought would be, just play the game a little bit. Don't sell your soul, right? But play the game, be nice, stay in contact with them. I'd say that's probably the most important thing, right? Don't be the kind of person who's detached from your boss, right? Be somebody who is attached to your boss, right? So they know where you are, know where you stand. That's my advice.
Okay, I would throw out. I'm not sure how nice I can be, and so this is why. This is why I work for myself. Okay, let me give that disclaimer. Most of my salary comes from my direct whatever I'm doing. So, but I do currently have kind of a partial boss, a few. I guess what I throw out to you is, what we tell kids all the time. If you want to have a friend, be a friend, right? So be friendly, but don't sell, like Dr. GJ said, don't sell yourself, short, and don't be inauthentic, because that'll just wear your ass out. Like you'll just burn out even faster. And one of the tips that I use, my mom always said, be nice to people, even if you don't agree with them, even if you don't like them, just be nice. And so that's my general tactic. And then your job is not you. So at the end of the day,
Yes.
make sure that you know where you end and your job begins, because if you don't lose yourself, because if you lose yourself, all sorts of stuff will happen. So so that's kind of how I keep my sanity.
Might not be able to get yourself back if you lose yourself.
Oh, preach.
And y'all probably gonna see this for the whole show. I like to practice on the opposite end of the spectrum, which I think is a really good balance, because maybe you can find y'all can find yourselves somewhere in the middle. I am a proponent of, I love it, everything both of you just said, but I also don't know how nice I can be, because it's hard for me to mask my authentic reactions to people. It's namely to my boss. So what I would say is that I am a proponent of radical, like honest communication, and that doesn't have to be rude. Right? That could be very kind, as you're saying, Dr. J, that could be very soft, or it could be assertive, but I am a proponent of radical communication. And here's why. If you're trying to build a relationship with a boss, with someone, then I want to know that I can show up as my professional self in this relationship and not have to perform. It's not sustainable. And that there is general interest from both parties for us to be able to cultivate a working relationship. If I got to do too much buying you beers and being kind and all of that, then that tells me that that's probably not the way I'm going to go. And I will acknowledge that I too am an entrepreneur. So in the back of my mind is if this shit don't work out, I can always self-select out at the end of the day. Okay. But, I do want to be very honest and forthcoming about how I'm feeling and share that with my boss. Now, there can be tactful ways in which you can do that and see if they're open and amenable to being able to hear that feedback. That's going to tell you all you need to know. That's going to tell you how you need to pivot. If you do need to tiptoe, if you do need to be more open, if you can be transparent. But I just believe in giving people the opportunity to be honest with themselves, and then giving that person who you need to be honest with the opportunity to receive it in a good way, in a way that will give you information. You know what I mean? So that would be my tip to your question.
That's a great point. Can I add to that? What you said just made me think of something. It's also the boss's responsibility to have a good relationship with you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're the boss, right? Like, there's an inherent power differential, right? Like, I'm a parent, right? I have kids. I can't be mad at my kids for too long, right? Like, I have to always be the one to be like, all right, come on, eat your dinner. Come on, let's do X, Y, Z, because I have the power, right? I'm the older one. If you're the boss, it's your responsibility to have a good relationship with your workers and see how you can work with them, right? And make them feel comfortable, make them feel supported. So thanks for saying what you said.
That's important to assess. I love that extra point, because that's important to assess if you do have the autonomy, or if you are thinking about, pivoting or moving out. I don't want to promote any Black people being in toxic environments that's going to tear them down further than they already are going to be torn down just by virtue of being Black in America. So I don't want that to be, the extra burden of like, I need to
preach.
Make my boss like me or what have you. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something that could at least be considered. We may not always have the means and the privileges and the opportunities to act on it, but I definitely think it's something that we need to be considering. Was my boss open, and did they understand the expectations of me during COVID? Did they consider that? Are they trying to have a positive relationship with me? Are they, they're mindful of my mental health or not? So I hope that answers for you, Rashida. That was a very layered answer, but we wanted to be, comprehensive.
Thank you. It was a great question.
Absolutely.
I think this is a perfect pivot, as we're talking about bosses and power differentials and owning that. oftentimes, this is our last segment, which I really like, is the last nerve, where we talk about who done got on our damn last nerve on the job. And sometimes, a lot of times they do come from your bosses, it can come from colleagues or both. But I think we want to spend some time tonight talking about what was the last nerve that got hit this week. And I think that Dr. Brian got a last nerve.
Yes, I do. So this is my opportunity. I'm going to vent a little bit. My goal is to hopefully bring it back so that we have a productive conclusion, something that y'all can take away from this message. My dad's a preacher. I'm going to try not to, get into that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to try.
You don't have too long, though, Brian. Remember that. You don't have too long.
And then yeah. Well, then the other thing, because keeping preachers in mind, I'm also going to give myself a little timer. So I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute, y'all. I'm going to try for 1 minute to get it all in 1 minute. And then as we have more last nerves, as our podcast series goes along, we'll get even better at it. So I'm going to set my alarm and let's see what happens. So today, y'all, I'm going to talk about the abuse of power. So that is my topic today, because that is my last nerve. So I just spent most of the day watching the impeachment trial. I am working in systems that are majority white, male oriented, because I work in medicine. I'm looking at school districts that are run by majority white male and white female people. And I do not appreciate abuse of power. You have a fiduciary responsibility, meaning you have a responsibility to the people that you serve in those roles, because we are in a service industry. Education is a service industry. Medicine is a service industry. Government is a service industry. You have a responsibility to those people, and you need to uphold that responsibility. And it is unfair to do anything else. You do not get to put yourself first. And if you don't want the job, then don't do the job. It really is that easy. There are some folks that I know I can't work with, but it's still my responsibility to let them know what their options are as their physician, whether we disagree on vaccines, which again, I think they're good. Some people don't, but that's okay. I'm going to give you informed consent. That is my responsibility. You know what? I'm going to go over this. We're going to change that. It's going to be a minute and a half to 2 minutes the next time. Okay. So I have a responsibility to tell you what your options are, and you get to choose what you want to do. Educators should be staying up overnight to make sure that our kids are being taken care of. This vaccine rollout, whether you believe in it or not, again, I do. It should be 24/7. If you want a shot, you should get a shot, right? That's how it should be. We should all be using our fiduciary and our responsibility as people in power to affect large global change. And so that is my last nerve this week. And so my takeaway that I want y'all to take away is that when you're in the position of power, do what's right. You know what's right. Yes. Your mama and your daddy, your grandma, they taught you, do what's right. That's called integrity. All right. So have integrity about the process. And that's all I got for the evening, y'all.
Listen, can they pass around the offering? Because I got an offering. And we can open up the doors of the church. That was amazing. If you are in power, thank you so much, Dr. Brian, for that last nerve. We really appreciate you for offering that last nerve, because that's important to underscore. And I don't want that to get lost. When you sign up for service industries, which we are in, when you sign up to do what you pledge oath to do, have some integrity. And integrity in layman's terms is what you're supposed to do when ain't nobody looking. And I said ain't, when ain't nobody looking. And you cannot abuse that power, because that's not what you signed up for. There's so many people counting on you, depending on you. And that has several implications. And you know what? Because I am spiritual up in here, woe unto you, because justice will be served. It may be delayed, but it won't be denied. And and that's on who? Mary's little lamb right there. That justice will be delayed, but it won't be denied. So yeah, y'all, let me calm it down, because Dr. Brian got me all fired up, and I'm gonna be zen. Thank y'all so much for engaging us and coming to the break room. This is the space where we come, we gather, we center Black folks, Black professionals, Black wellness, and we will be back.
Thank you. We will be back.
Week, same time, same place.
Thanks, y'all.